One of the requirements was I had to have some sort of healthcare experience. So I had to take a job in a residential home. I think I had to write an entrance examination for all of the schools that I went to. And it was a math exam and an English exam. So I didn't always start up being a nurse. I actually had my first degree in international relations at Obafemi Awolowo University. Afterwards, I moved fully to be back with my family in England. Backstory, my family moved when I was 15 and we all moved. But because I was in uni at the time already, they kind of thought it might be a bit disruptive. So I chose to stay back in Nigeria to finish my first degree before I then moved back to the UK. When I moved back to the UK after uni, I got a job working for Domestic and General, which is an insurance company. But I think about 5 months into the job, I realized I didn't like it very much and I wanted to do something else. And from the very moment that my family actually moved to the UK, my mom, who is a nurse, has always pressed for me to go do it. And I just wasn't a party to it. I didn't think I wanted to be a nurse. I didn't see myself being a nurse. It just wasn't something I thought I would ever do. But I think it was just a spur of the moment. I was at work that day and I was just frustrated. I'm like, you know what? I'm actually going to go look online and see what this whole nursing thing is about and see if I can still get in. I'd gone online to kind of see what schools I could potentially go to or what things I could consider. And I remember, I think I had about a week before the whole application process actually closed when I had gone online to find out. So I'd gone home that day, written my personal statement, applied to a couple of schools. So I think I applied to King's College, I applied to London South Bank, then what's that other school? City University of London, I think it's called. And I applied to Swansea University, which is in Wales. I think they're in Wales. Yes. And I applied to that one. But the one in Wales was a fully funded government program, which would have meant that at the end, I would have had to stay in Wales for 2 years before I then could go ahead and do whatever I wanted with my life. My mom wasn't quite comfortable with that because obviously meant I'll be far from home and far from family. So that kind of went out the window, even though I did get the admission. But yeah, my mom wasn't too keen on it. So I had to pick one of the 3 other schools that I applied to. And it might be worth mentioning that my brother also applied to nursing school around this time. So I know. And I think we applied to the same 3 schools, actually. So we got into all 3 schools. And at the point where I can't remember, they called me saying, I think I got into both King's and I got into South Bank. But at the time I was doing my application, I didn't realize that I'd put South Bank as my first choice and King's as my second choice.
So there's something like first choice, second choice here also.
Yeah. So yes, actually there is. Because I applied through, I can't remember the name of that website, but it's a website everybody uses to apply to universities. I honestly don't remember what it's called now. And you kind of like get to pick the first 3 schools that you'd like. Well, you only get to pick 3. The 3 schools that you would like, and those were my 3 schools that I wanted. So because I got into all 3, ideally I could have decided which one I wanted to go for. So it could have been King's, could have been City, or it could have been South Bank. But at the time, I didn't know that you could actually change what your first choice was. I thought you had to go to your first choice. So I ended up going to London South Bank University to do the postgraduate degree, which was 2 years. And my brother went to King's. So I did my nursing degree in London South Bank University. And I'm actually glad I did because it was a home away from home kind of school. There were a lot of Nigerians in my class, which really helped. Because it meant that I didn't feel as overwhelmed, especially because I was coming from a completely different background. The only healthcare experience I had as such was, so before you actually, sorry, I should have mentioned this. Before I got into the nursing degree, one of the requirements was I had to have some sort of healthcare experience. So I had to take a job in a residential home for maybe like 3 months or something along those lines. So I did that and then I quit my job at the insurance company, did the residential home job for a few months and then got into nursing school. So did my 2 years program, had all my placements at Guy's and St. Thomas's Hospital in London, which is where I started working after I qualified. And I started working on the ward where I did my aspirant nurse training. Because once again, in your final placement, you get to decide where you want to have your final placement in. So my options that I'd chosen was A&E, a general medical ward, and I can't remember the third one. I think maybe it was a gastrosurgical ward. I'd had a placement there and I liked. So initially I was posted to a stroke ward, which I did not want. And thankfully, they did some reallocation again. They said, okay, you know what, you go to a general medical ward. I know you want A&E, but if opportunities open in A&E, we'll push you to A&E, because it was during COVID and they didn't want students in A&E because that would have meant you in the front line and they were exposing you a lot more than you should be. So I agreed to stay on the general medical ward. And I think 2 weeks afterwards, they told me there was opening in A&E if I wanted to go over, but I'd already started in the general medical ward. I just chose to stay there, which I'm glad I did actually.
Can you briefly tell us what were the main things that you did?
Right. So to be fair, I didn't. The requirements were not a lot as you would expect, because like I said, the course that I did at first was nothing related to nursing at all. But I did have I think they call it the acronym stands for APL. I can't remember what it stands for right now, but essentially I had to prove that the degree that I did had some sort of similarities to nursing. So essentially, it was looking at the modules that I did in my first degree and how I could relate them to nursing. And I think if you go to a Nigerian university, because of the number of courses you have to borrow from everywhere else, you would likely find so many things that you would relate to nursing in terms of, even if it's just like your usual electives that you would do, like your module points. I don't remember what they are called, but I know that in Ife we used to have a lot of like electives that didn't exactly add to your CGPA, but you just did them. So yeah, so things like that. Depending on which ones you did, there'll be so many of them that you could probably relate to nursing. So I had to do that. Obviously, they wanted me to have some sort of healthcare experience as well. So it might be that you could volunteer in a hospital or volunteer in a care home, or it doesn't have to be volunteering. You can do it as paid work. You have to do that as well. And obviously you have to, I think I had to write an entrance examination for all of the schools that I went to, and it was a math exam and an English exam if I'm not wrong. And then you have your nursing interviews that you go for, and that's when they let you know if they will take you in or not. In terms of the actual requirements, so luckily for me, I was not applying as an international student because my family had already been here for a while, so I was a home student. So I was able to get like student loans to like finance my nursing school degree. So finances would be another thing that I would say that most people will have to be mindful of, because I know that it does get quite expensive, especially as international students if you're going to be doing nursing. So just make sure that it is for you before you commit such amounts of money into doing it. And if you've been here for a while, you're eligible to apply for student loans, then by all means get that done. I think you also get the 5K bursary now if you're doing nursing, so that helps. I didn't get the bursary. Also, I remember I had to do like a life sciences workbook, which is essentially a very big book that they give you, and it's like a workbook, a biology workbook, where you have to like fill it through with all the answers. So that will kind of like count for like your first year of nursing, because technically it's a condensed course. So instead of doing the BSc for 3 years, I did the postgrad for 2 years. So they kind of want you to still make up for that 1 year of nursing that you've missed. So that's why you have your life sciences workbook. So it's kind of like a condensed anatomy module, basically. So you just answer all the questions, and then once you're done, there's usually like a deadline to turn it in, and then you submit that back to the school, and then I don't think that you could pass or you could fail, because once it's an open textbook, go look for your answers. So as long as you fill in the book, I think you'll be fine. But I don't remember having to do anything specific as such. I think they were fine with my WAEC results from secondary school.
Were you a science student in secondary school?
It's complicated. I was and I was not. I was in that I started off as being a science student. Then when I got to second term, I wanted to do something else. But let's just say my family were not as supportive. So it meant that I ended up doing both sciences and arts till it was time for me to write JAMB.
The WAEC you submitted, was it science?
It had all art courses on them.
So not science.
Nothing science related at all. No.
Science related.
You don't necessarily have to be coming from a science background.
Right.
In terms of like the other correlations between your previous degree and the nursing degree that you're about to do, a lot of the things that they want to see would be courses related to the biological sciences, law, ethics, sociology, and most of us will probably have that already, because I know that for most people, at least where I had my first degree, we all had to do some sort of sociology course, which was completely unrelated to me at the time, but it does help in life apparently. So yeah, most people would probably have something related to it. You also have to have some sort of like maths module that you would have done at some point. It doesn't have to be anything major, just any sort of maths will be fine. So I had to do maths in university, so that was fine for me as well. But I think most people would be able to definitely find things that they can tie together to meet up with the requirements.